Well, hello there. This is Dr. John Hawkins from Gateway Counseling Center, and I want to welcome you out today to another edition of The Overcomer. It's our video blog that we put out to try to be a help to you who listen in. And today I want to talk to you about a subject I call pushing yourself to grow. You know, we have a little tagline we use around here at Gateway where we say that Gateway is where mental health meets personal growth. In other words, we're trying to help people heal and become whole mentally, emotionally, but then from there on how to grow personally, how to be the best version of themselves. You know, I heard this definition one time of death. It's the absence of growth. And I thought that was, pretty good. Abraham Maslow said this: in any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or step back into safety. And what happens with a lot of people, you've heard that expression, dead men walking. There are a lot of people like that in the world. They're dead people walking. In other words, they've stopped growing. They've stopped living while they're still alive. They just sit back and give up, and they're not doing anything, with their life. I found the people that do the best in the counseling are people that when they come into the sessions and we talk about things and we give them some tools and say, now go out and practice this and try this. The people actually do something with it, and then maybe they're reading some other things on their own. They make progress quicker. They actually start to solve problems versus those that come in and then they don't do anything before the next session, and they continue that session after session. So you have to push yourself sometimes. And to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, especially if we want to be the best version of ourselves. We're not in competition with anybody else in the world because we're all unique. There's nobody exactly like you. You're the only one with your fingerprints. So I don't have to worry about everybody else. I just focus on me. Am I the best version of me? What am I doing with the resources, the skills, talents, passion, all that God has given me? I've talked about this before about change in life and what I call the old normal and new normal. When you think about change, sometimes we wonder, why do people keep doing the same thing that they already know doesn't work? That could be on the job, that could be the way they run their business, it could be about their relationships, but they don't make any change. It's because they're comfortable, even if it's dysfunctional, even if it's hurtful to them. They just keep doing the same thing because it's all they know and it's comfortable, and it's too scary to move out of that comfortable and to move into the unknown. The unknown is scary. And so for a lot of people, they won't really execute on a plan or a dream that they have for the future. And that's because their old normal is known and it's comfortable, and they get these ideas. They think that, wow, this could really be good. This could send my life where I want it to be, but they'll never execute because of all the unknowns that are with it. And so if we're going to push ourselves, we have to be willing to take that leap of faith from the known old normal into the unknown new normal. Now, change is the one constant of life. It's always happening. And if you take a look in the world, study business, for example, some businesses have been around through generations. They have been around for decades, and others have gone out of business. And if you look at what's one of the differences between businesses that are great businesses and last and are long term, is that ability to change and grow as situation changes. Like being a buggy whip manufacturer, and then there's no more horses and buggies. Okay, so when you start to see cars hitting the roads, and they're starting to take over more, you got to start, you can either say, well, those will never last, or you can say, hey, maybe I need to move into a new area besides buggy whips. And so those abilities have the ability to, or those businesses have the ability to reinvent themselves. And it's the same like with entertainers and singers. You know, everybody comes on the scene and they're popular for a while, and then some new face comes along, and now they're popular. Or this actor ages and another one comes in and replaces them. But sometimes some people, again, last through the decades. They may wane some and they're not as popular as they were, but they learn how to reinvent themselves. They learn how to make changes in their life, to read what's going on in the culture and say, you know what, let me do this. I've always done this, but that doesn't seem to be working so well anymore. So let me try this thing. That's not an easy thing to do. Because, you know, out here in the world, there are always disruptors. In other words, there's always some new company, some young, hungry person that wants to see the future and change the future, and everything changes over a period of time. And I've got to be able to watch that and see how to be able to do that if I want my life to continue to grow and count all through my life. I don't want to be a dead man walking. So how do I adjust to that? You know, the happiest and healthiest people in life are those that learn how to adapt to change. And so in letting go of the old normal, one reason that that's hard is a lot of times my identity is connected to that old normal. And if I make a major change and I give up that old normal and what I always did and say, I'm going to go into this new area, it's like I'm giving up everything I've known and I'm giving up who I feel I am. But the reality is, you aren't what you do. You know, your identity isn't the job you do or the things that you do. You're you. All that other stuff is external, and it's going to change over time because nothing stays the same. So I've developed what I call the ability to reframe the change my perspective on life and the changes that are coming along. It's all how I choose to look at this situation. You know, I can get upset with it, I can get worried about it, I can say, oh, that's, you know, I can live in the past and, you know, people just don't understand and appreciate things, and I can create negative emotions, or I can decide and choose to decide, well, how am I going to handle that? It was Abraham Lincoln who said, I think most people are about as happy as they make up their mind to be. So it's how I choose to look at it. You know, is the glass half full? Is it half empty? Can I change my perspective on it? Some people can and some people can't, or at least they won't. You know, let me give you a good scripture verse that speaks to this idea. It's found in 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 15 to 16. I'm just going to read part of it. But the Apostle Paul says here, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Now look at that first part, rejoice always. He didn't say rejoice sometimes. Now, the truth is, hey, there's bad things in the world, and there's bad times in the world. There's times we get discouraged, and we get depressed, and we get angry, and we get anxious. That's the reality of living in the world. You know, if you were to ask me, hey, Dr. John, you always rejoice always? If I'm being honest, I'd have to say no. You know, sometimes I'm grumbling, sometimes I'm complaining, sometimes I'm saying that, yeah, I don't really like that or understand that. That looks like trouble. That looks like a problem. Why is God letting this happen to me? But then you have to work on your mindset a little bit. You know, then it comes time kind of like to, you know, practice what you preach, so to speak. To say, and that's something to remember. Sometimes it's a process. You can't always just automatically, oh, I'm going to rejoice today. I just been to the doctor and he told me I got cancer. Oh, my wife just told me she wants to divorce me. Well, that's not going to be in most cases like, oh, yeah, I'm so happy, about that. Now I'm going to have to process my emotions a little bit. I'm going to have to work through that. And then I'm going to have to say, okay, rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances. And I'm going to have to keep running that through my mind and my emotions till I am thinking different. I'm readjusting my attitude and my emotions where that can become a reality, that I can rejoice by faith. Now, a lot of times over a period of time, that thing that looked like the worst thing that ever happened to us, we can see how it turned out to be a great opportunity, and we can look back and say, in reality, I thought that was the worst thing that happened to me, but that ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me. But when we're in it, we can't always see it. So sometimes we have to do that by faith. Now, the longer you live, then the more, if you can adjust and have the right perspective and reframe, you see that happen. And that becomes a reality, and it helps you through those tough times. That's what gives us resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from difficult times. And resilience is learned from going through adversity. There's really no other way to learn it, We're not going to learn how to bounce back from tough times if we don't have the tough times. Now, we're not going to usually ask for that, but you don't have to. It's just going to happen. That's life. So then I've got to learn, how do I handle that? How do I reframe that? Now, here's what I call a reality life lesson. I always say, when you face reality, it's not as tough as if you live in denial of reality. If you fight against reality, you always lose. Here's a reality life lesson. Life is tough. It's competitive. Most people won't care about your feelings. Life isn't fair, and no one owes you anything in life. Now, it may sound harsh and mean and cruel, but that's how life is. Now, that doesn't mean that has to be your attitude and the way you treat people, but if you look in life in general, and then once you accept, oh, that's life, then guess what? It doesn't seem as tough. It doesn't seem as cruel. It doesn't bother me as much because I've realigned my expectations. And so we want to build resiliency into our kids and prepare them for real life. They're not always going to win. They're going to lose sometime. And so we teach them how to bounce back from that. Our role as parents is not to protect our kids from every disappointment, because that's impossible. We teach them how to go through it. You've heard that expression, the fog of war, which basically means things rarely go as planned. If you're a military leader and you prepare a strategy and tactics for war, once the enemy is engaged, once the bullets start flying and all hell breaks loose, nothing goes the way it was planned. So now I'm left to adapt and improvise and make it up as I go, versus freaking out and forgetting the mission. And, if you're a coach, you have a game plan, and so often it doesn't go the way the game plan. And so somewhere in there, you're adapting, changing, implementing. You're a teacher, you have a lesson plan. And you go into school that day and it seems like all the kids are demon possessed. It's like, what happened to you kids? You were all good yesterday. Okay, so now I've got to adapt and change. And that's kind of the way life is. You make a plan, you do your due diligence, then you pull the trigger and execute on it. And then along the way, you adjust, you adapt, you improvise as you're going. Kind of that expression, sometimes we're putting the plane together while we're flying. And you don't allow perfection to become the enemy of performance. You don't get analysis paralysis, because you can't think of everything and you can't plan for everything. You're going to do the best that you can. But the difference between doers and dreamers is execution, that willingness to push myself for growth, push myself out of my old normal, push myself out of my comfort zone, get into where I'm going to be a little more fearful because I don't know how it's going to go. But that's what makes life an adventure. You know, if you know everything, can predict everything, it's going to get kind of boring. Well, let me encourage you, don't be a dead man walking. Don't die before you die. You know, if you've got life, then you still have a purpose and meaning. And it could be different than what it was 20 years ago. But realize, I'm just going to figure out what that is, and I'm going to adjust to it. And then I'm going to be an overcomer and accept that change, move into it, and then I'll just see what God does with it. Well, I hope that's some help and some encouragement to you. And so you come back and see us for too long. And until next time, just remember, you are an overcomer. Okay, God bless you. I'll talk to you later. Bye now.